damage a reputation that took decades to build. One impulsive choice can close doors that discipline had slowly opened. History is filled with talented people who lost everything, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked self-control. Talent creates opportunities. Character protects them. This is why your future depends far more on your discipline than on your natural ability. Powerful people understand something most people never learn. Emotions are valuable sources of information, but terrible decision makers. Fear may warn you to prepare better, but it should not stop you from acting. Anger may reveal that a boundary has been crossed, but it should not control your words. Excitement may inspire you, but it should not replace careful judgment. The moment emotion becomes your master, someone else can manipulate your future simply by manipulating your feelings. That is why emotional discipline becomes your greatest advantage. When people know exactly how to provoke you, they control your behavior. When they know exactly what makes you angry, insecure, or desperate, they possess influence over your decisions. But when you develop self-mastery, you become difficult to manipulate. Criticism no longer controls your confidence. Praise no longer inflates your ego. Delays no longer destroy your patience. You stop living according to other people's behavior and begin living according to your own principles. Patience is another hidden law that changes your future. Most people destroy long-term success because they demand immediate rewards. They abandon meaningful goals when progress becomes slow. They trade permanent success for temporary comfort. But every extraordinary future is built through consistent discipline that often produces invisible results before visible ones. A tree spends years strengthening its roots before its height impresses anyone. Your character grows the same way. Every disciplined decision strengthens the invisible foundation that future success will eventually stand upon. Self-mastery also requires complete responsibility. It is easy to blame circumstances, difficult people, or bad luck when life becomes disappointing. But blame gives away power because it convinces you that someone else controls your future. Powerful individuals think differently. Instead of asking, "Who ruined this opportunity?" they ask, "What can I improve before the next opportunity arrives?" This question immediately shifts control back into their own hands. Growth begins the moment responsibility replaces excuses. Another dangerous enemy of power is ego. Ego constantly seeks validation, recognition, and superiority. It wants to win every argument, prove every point, and receive appreciation for every effort. But ego often creates the very weakness it tries to hide. It prevents learning because admitting mistakes feels painful. It destroys relationships because pride refuses to apologize. It blocks growth because it fears appearing imperfect. True confidence is different. Confidence remains quiet because it does not need constant approval. It focuses on improvement rather than image. Look at your daily habits because they quietly predict your future. Every promise you break to yourself weakens your confidence. Every unnecessary distraction steals time from your purpose. Every excuse accepted today becomes another obstacle tomorrow. But every disciplined action strengthens your identity. Every difficult decision completed despite discomfort teaches your mind that you are becoming someone who can be trusted under pressure. Power is not built during rare moments of greatness. It is built through ordinary decisions repeated consistently over time. There will always be situations outside your control. Markets change, relationships end, unexpected failures appear, opportunities disappear without warning. You cannot control every event, but you can always control your response. And that response eventually becomes your future. When self-mastery becomes your foundation, setbacks become lessons instead of excuses. Criticism becomes information instead of injury. Delays become preparation instead of defeat. You stop allowing circumstances to define your direction because your principles become stronger than your emotions. This is why the first law of power changes your future more than any external advantage ever could. When you master yourself, you stop becoming your own greatest obstacle. You become disciplined when others become distracted. You remain calm when others become emotional. You continue building while others surrender to temporary frustration. Over time, these invisible victories create visible success that seems effortless to everyone watching, even though it was earned through years of quiet self-control. And once you have mastered yourself, the next law of power is learning to build and protect a reputation that opens doors long before you ever speak. After mastering yourself, the next law of power that can completely change your future is learning to protect your reputation. Most people think reputation is simply what others say about them, but it is much more than that. Your reputation becomes your invisible introduction. It enters every room before you do. It influences opportunities before anyone speaks to you. It shapes whether people trust you, respect you, recommend you, or choose to avoid you. Long before someone experiences your abilities, they often experience the story attached to your name. That is why powerful people treat their reputation like one of the most valuable assets they will ever own. Every decision you make quietly builds that story. It is not created by one impressive moment or one inspiring speech. It is built through consistency. People remember how reliable you are when no one is watching. They remember whether your actions match your words. They remember whether you remain calm under pressure or become emotional at the first sign of difficulty. Your future is often determined by these small observations that seem insignificant in the moment but become unforgettable over time. Many people unknowingly destroy their own reputation because they chase temporary satisfaction instead of long-term respect. They make promises they cannot keep. They react emotionally during disagreements. They gossip about people behind their backs. They seek attention through unnecessary drama. At first, these actions may seem harmless, but every repeated behavior slowly creates an image that becomes difficult to erase. Once people begin expecting inconsistency from you, rebuilding trust becomes far more difficult than protecting it in the first place. Powerful people understand this law, so they become intentional about the image they create. They do not try to impress everyone. Instead, they focus on becoming dependable. They know that quiet consistency creates more influence than loud confidence. They do not need to announce their discipline because their behavior speaks for them. They arrive prepared. They complete what they begin. They respect their commitments even when no reward is immediately visible. Over time, this reliability becomes part of their identity, and that identity opens doors that talent alone could never unlock. One of the greatest threats to your reputation is emotional impulsiveness. Imagine spending years earning respect only to lose it because of one uncontrolled reaction, one public argument, one dishonest decision, or one moment of arrogance can overshadow years of good work. This is why reputation is closely connected to self-mastery. The discipline you developed in the first law now protects the image you build in the second. Every time you choose wisdom over emotion, you strengthen the trust people place in your character. Another mistake many people make is trying to satisfy everyone. They constantly change their opinions to gain approval. They become different versions of themselves depending on who is watching. While this may create temporary acceptance, it eventually creates confusion. People respect consistency more than constant agreement. They may not always agree with your decisions, but they should know what principles guide them. A person with clear values becomes predictable in the best possible way. Others know what to expect because integrity remains stronger than convenience. Your reputation also depends on how you treat people who cannot benefit you. It is easy to show respect when someone has power, influence, or status. The real test comes when there is nothing to gain. Powerful individuals remain respectful because character is not a performance. They understand that every interaction contributes to the story people tell about them. Someone you overlook today may become the person who recommends you tomorrow. Someone you treat unfairly may become the reason an opportunity disappears years later. Every conversation carries consequences that often remain invisible until the future. At the same time, protecting your reputation does not mean becoming obsessed with everyone's opinion. There is an important difference between reputation and people-pleasing. You cannot control every rumor, every misunderstanding, or every judgment. Some people will dislike you regardless of what you do. Chasing universal approval will only weaken your authenticity. Instead, focus on living with such consistency that false opinions eventually lose their power. Let your actions become stronger than temporary criticism. Another law powerful people follow is avoiding unnecessary conflict. They understand that every argument carries a cost. They do not waste their reputation trying to win meaningless battles. Before responding, they ask themselves whether the conversation protects their principles or simply feeds their ego. If silence preserves more dignity than another explanation, they choose silence. If walking away protects more respect than proving a point, they walk away. They understand that not every victory is worth the price it demands. Reputation also grows through competence. Confidence without ability eventually becomes empty. If you want people to respect your name, continue developing your skills long after others become comfortable. Read more than others, learn more than others, improve more than others. When preparation meets opportunity, people begin associating your name with excellence. That association becomes one of the strongest forms of power because opportunities start finding you instead of you constantly chasing them. Remember that your reputation compounds exactly like your habits. Every honest decision strengthens it. Every broken promise weakens it. Every disciplined action adds another layer of trust. Every careless shortcut removes one. Over the years, these small choices create a powerful identity that influences relationships, careers, leadership, and success in ways that cannot always be measured immediately. Many people spend years trying to repair damage that could have been prevented by a few moments of self-control. Your future is not shaped only by what you accomplish. It is shaped by what people believe they can expect from you. When your name becomes associated with integrity, discipline, reliability, and quiet confidence, opportunities begin arriving before you even ask for them. People trust you with greater responsibility because they believe your character will protect your ability. That trust becomes one of the greatest sources of lasting power. And once your reputation begins opening doors for your future, the next law of power is learning to protect the one resource that determines how far you can truly go, your attention. After mastering yourself and protecting your reputation, the next law of power that can completely change your future is learning to protect your attention. Most people believe money is the most valuable resource they possess, but money can be earned again after it is lost. Time can never be recovered, and attention determines how you use the time you have. Wherever your attention goes, your future quietly follows. If your attention is constantly consumed by distractions, drama, comparison, and meaningless entertainment, your future will reflect those choices. But if your attention is invested in learning, discipline, meaningful work, and personal growth, your future will eventually become the reward for that focus. This is why powerful people guard their attention with extraordinary discipline. They understand that the modern world is designed to compete for their focus every minute of the day. Every notification, argument, headline, trend, and opinion is trying to pull their mind away from what truly matters. Most people surrender without realizing it. They wake up with goals, but spend their day reacting to whatever demands their attention first. By evening, they feel busy, but have moved no closer to the future they want. The law of power teaches something very different. Do not allow your attention to become public property. Your mind is one of your greatest assets, and every unnecessary distraction weakens its ability to create something meaningful. Successful people rarely become successful by giving equal importance to everything. They become successful because they know what deserves their focus and what deserves to be ignored. Look carefully at where most people waste their attention. They follow every online argument. They compare their lives to strangers. They become emotionally invested in gossip that has no connection to their goals. They spend hours discussing problems they have no intention of solving. Every one of these habits feels small, but together they quietly steal years from a person's future. A distracted mind cannot build extraordinary results because lasting success requires deep concentration over long periods of time. Powerful individuals understand that attention is directly connected to influence. Whoever controls your attention gradually influences your thinking, your emotions, and eventually your decisions. If someone can constantly provoke you, they control part of your life. If social media determines your mood every morning, your attention no longer belongs to you. If criticism keeps replaying in your mind for days while your goals receive only a few minutes of focus, you have unknowingly given more power to negativity than to your own future. That is why learning what to ignore becomes just as important as learning what to pursue. Every distraction you refuse creates more space for meaningful progress. Every unnecessary argument you avoid protects your mental energy. Every comparison you reject allows you to focus on improving yourself instead of competing with illusions. This is not about isolating yourself from the world. It is about deciding that your future deserves more attention than temporary noise. Another danger is giving your attention to people who repeatedly drain your energy. Some individuals thrive on conflict, constant complaints, and emotional chaos. They rarely solve problems. Instead, they invite others into endless cycles of negativity. If you spend enough time around this mindset, your own thinking slowly begins to change. Powerful people recognize this early. They do not hate these individuals, but they refuse to allow their emotional energy to become controlled by them. They choose environments that strengthen discipline instead of feeding distraction. Attention also determines the quality of your learning. Most people consume enormous amounts of information, but develop very little wisdom. They watch endless videos, read countless opinions, and jump from one trend to another without mastering anything deeply. Powerful people choose depth over endless variety. They focus on developing valuable skills, understanding timeless principles, and improving their ability to think clearly. Their attention becomes an investment instead of entertainment. There will always be moments when protecting your attention feels difficult. Progress is often quiet, while distractions are loud. Building a skill may feel slow, but scrolling through endless content feels effortless. Reading a book requires concentration, while reacting to notifications requires nothing. Your future, however, is not shaped by what feels easiest today. It is shaped by what continues to improve your mind long after temporary excitement disappears. Every disciplined hour invested in growth quietly separates your future from those who constantly chase distractions. Powerful people also understand the importance of protecting their mental peace. They do not feel obligated to respond to every opinion or defend themselves against every criticism. They ask one simple question before giving something their attention: asterisk, will this matter 1 year from now? If the answer is no, they often choose silence. They understand that every unnecessary emotional reaction steals focus from something far more valuable. They would rather invest that energy into building their future than proving themselves to people who have no influence over it. Imagine giving your biggest dreams the same level of attention that most people give their distractions. Imagine studying with the same consistency that others spend comparing themselves to strangers. Imagine protecting your focus with the same determination that others protect their excuses. Over time, these invisible decisions create extraordinary differences. The gap between successful people and unsuccessful people is often not intelligence. It is sustained attention applied to meaningful goals over many years. This law reminds you that your future is built by what repeatedly receives your focus. Every book you read, every skill you practice, every disciplined habit you strengthen, and every distraction you refuse becomes part of the life you are creating. Attention is never neutral. It is always building something. The only question is whether it is building the future you truly want. When you finally take complete ownership of your attention, you stop living according to the world's distractions and start living according to your highest priorities. That quiet shift changes the direction of your future more than most people ever realize. And once you have learned to protect your attention, the next law of power is learning to replace emotional reactions with strategic thinking before making every important decision. After mastering yourself, protecting your reputation, and guarding your attention, the next law of power that can transform your future is learning to replace emotional reactions with strategic thinking. This is the point where many people separate themselves from success without even realizing it. They do not fail because they lack intelligence. They fail because they allow emotions to make decisions that should have been made by reason. The future is rarely destroyed by one great mistake. It is usually damaged by hundreds of emotional decisions that seemed justified in the moment but proved costly over time. Think about how most people respond when life becomes difficult. The moment they are criticized, they react defensively. The moment they feel rejected, they make impulsive choices. The moment someone insults them, they feel an urgent need to fight back. Every emotional reaction gives away a piece of control. Instead of directing their future, they begin allowing other people's behavior to determine their next move. This is exactly what powerful people refuse to do. They understand that if someone else can control your emotions, they can influence your decisions. And if they influence your decisions, they influence your future. Strategic thinking begins with one simple habit: pause before you respond. This pause may last a few seconds, a few hours, or even a few days depending on the situation. It creates space between emotion and action. Most people fear this pause because they believe immediate reactions demonstrate strength. In reality, immediate reactions often reveal a lack of control. True strength is the ability to slow down when everyone else is speeding up. It is the discipline to think clearly while others are controlled by anger, fear, excitement, or pride. Powerful people never confuse activity with progress. They know that moving quickly in the wrong direction only creates faster failure. Before making important decisions, they gather information. They observe patterns. They ask questions instead of making assumptions. They understand that appearances can be deceptive and that first impressions are not always accurate. While others rush to conclusions, they patiently study the situation until they understand what is truly happening beneath the surface. This law becomes especially important during conflict. When someone attacks your reputation, challenges your ideas, or tries to provoke you, your first instinct may be to defend yourself immediately. But strategy asks a different question. Asterisk, what outcome do I actually want? Sometimes the smartest response is to speak. Sometimes it is to remain silent. Sometimes it is to wait until emotions settle before continuing the conversation. The goal is not to satisfy your pride. The goal is to create the best long-term result. Powerful people never sacrifice tomorrow's opportunities simply to win today's argument. Another principle of strategic thinking is learning to see beyond the present moment. Average people focus only on what is directly in front of them. Powerful people constantly think several steps ahead. Before accepting an opportunity, they ask where it may lead 5 years from now. Before entering a partnership, they consider whether trust can survive pressure. Before making a major purchase, they think about how it affects future freedom rather than temporary pleasure. This long-term perspective protects them from decisions that feel good today but create regret tomorrow. Patience is the companion of strategy. Many opportunities are lost because people cannot tolerate waiting. They rush into relationships without understanding character. They rush into business decisions without understanding risk. They rush into conversations without understanding the consequences of their words. Strategic people recognize that timing is often just as important as action itself. There are moments when acting immediately creates success, but there are also moments when waiting creates a far greater advantage. Knowing the difference is one of the greatest forms of wisdom. Strategy also requires emotional detachment from temporary setbacks. Failure is not automatically a sign that you should abandon your goal. Criticism is not automatically proof that you are wrong. Delays are not automatically evidence that success is impossible. Powerful people separate facts from feelings. They evaluate situations objectively instead of allowing disappointment to define reality. They ask, asterisk, what lesson does this experience offer? Rather than asking, asterisk, why is this happening to me? Asterisk, this shift in thinking transforms obstacles into education instead of excuses. One of the greatest mistakes people make is allowing pride to replace strategy. Pride wants immediate revenge. Strategy wants lasting victory. Pride wants everyone to know it is right. Strategy only cares about achieving the desired outcome. Pride often creates unnecessary enemies because it cannot tolerate disagreement. Strategy understands that Preserving valuable relationships is sometimes more important than proving a point. The person who controls their ego controls far more opportunities than the person who constantly fights to protect it. Notice how the most successful leaders, entrepreneurs, and decision makers rarely appear rushed. They move with intention because they understand that every important choice carries consequences beyond the present moment. They know that a few minutes of careful thinking can prevent years of unnecessary struggle. Their calm is not weakness, it is preparation. Their patience is not hesitation, it is discipline. They recognize that every decision becomes a building block in the future they are creating. Your future is shaped less by dramatic moments than by repeated patterns of thinking. If you constantly react emotionally, your life becomes unpredictable because emotions change from one moment to the next. But if you consistently think strategically, your decisions become aligned with your values, your goals, and your long-term vision. That consistency gradually creates stability, trust, opportunity, and influence. People begin relying on your judgment because they know you will not make important decisions under emotional pressure. This law reminds you that real power is not found in reacting faster than everyone else. It is found in thinking more clearly than everyone else. Every time you choose patience over impulse, observation over assumption, and wisdom over emotion, you strengthen the future you are building. Strategic thinking transforms ordinary decisions into extraordinary advantages because it allows you to act with purpose instead of pressure. And once strategy begins guiding your decisions, the next law of power is learning to build so much value within yourself that your presence becomes impossible to replace. After learning to master yourself, protect your reputation, guard your attention, and think strategically, the next law of power that can completely change your future is building value that makes you impossible to ignore. Most people spend their lives trying to be noticed. They chase attention, approval, compliments, and recognition. They want people to admire them before they have given the world a reason to do so. But powerful people understand a completely different principle. They do not chase attention, they build value. And when your value becomes undeniable, attention follows naturally. Think about the people who leave a lasting impact wherever they go. They are not always the loudest voices in the room. They are not always the ones demanding respect. Instead, they possess something that cannot easily be replaced. They have developed knowledge, discipline, character, competence, and emotional stability to such a level that their presence becomes valuable. When they speak, people listen because their words carry experience. When they leave, people notice because they contributed something meaningful. That is real power. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that popularity and value are the same thing. Popularity can disappear overnight because it depends on public opinion. Value is different. It is built through years of learning, improving, and becoming useful. Trends change, opinions change, but genuine ability continues creating opportunities regardless of what is fashionable. The future belongs to people who solve problems, create results, and bring something meaningful wherever they go. This law begins by asking an uncomfortable question, asterisk, what makes you difficult to replace? If your answer depends only on your personality, your appearance, or temporary circumstances, then your position is fragile. But if your answer includes skills that few people possess, discipline that few people maintain, and character that few people demonstrate consistently, then you are building lasting power. Every hour spent developing yourself increases the value you bring into every relationship, career, and opportunity. Powerful people never stop investing in themselves. They understand that self-development is not a temporary project, but a lifelong commitment. While others spend years seeking shortcuts, they quietly improve their abilities. They read when others scroll endlessly. They practice when others complain. They study when others become comfortable. At first, these choices may seem ordinary, but over time they create extraordinary differences. Small improvements repeated consistently become impossible to compete with. Another important part of this law is emotional stability. Many people have talent, but very few remain dependable under pressure. A person who stays calm during difficult moments immediately becomes more valuable than someone who performs well only when life is easy. Employers trust them. Friends rely on them. Leaders respect them. Their value grows because people know they can be counted on when challenges appear. Emotional stability is not just a personal strength, it becomes a professional advantage and a source of long-term influence. Building value also means becoming a person who creates solutions instead of constantly creating problems. Everywhere you go, ask yourself, asterisk, how can I leave this situation better than I found it? Instead of complaining, contribute ideas. Instead of waiting to be told what to do, develop initiative. Instead of competing for recognition, compete to become more useful. The world consistently rewards people who reduce problems and increase value. Many individuals waste years trying to convince others of their worth. They constantly seek validation through words, social media, expensive possessions, or public recognition. But real value does not need constant advertisement. It quietly reveals itself through consistent results. People eventually notice excellence because excellence becomes difficult to ignore. Your goal should never be to appear important. Your goal should be to become important through the quality of your actions. This law also teaches you to stop depending on external approval for your confidence. If your self-worth depends on compliments, your confidence will rise and fall with other people's opinions. That gives away your power. Instead, build confidence through preparation. Every skill you master, every promise you keep, every challenge you overcome becomes evidence that you can trust yourself. That kind of confidence cannot be taken away by criticisms because it is rooted in reality rather than praise. Remember that value is not limited to professional success. It also includes integrity, loyalty, wisdom, kindness, discipline, and the ability to remain trustworthy when no one is watching. These qualities may not always receive immediate applause, but they create relationships that last, opportunities that multiply, and influence that grows stronger over time. The strongest people are remembered not only for what they achieved, but for who they became while achieving it. As your value increases, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop chasing every opportunity because opportunities begin searching for you. People recommend your name because they trust your standards. They invite you into important conversations because they believe you contribute something meaningful. Your reputation becomes stronger, your influence grows naturally, and your future expands because your value speaks before you do. This is one of the greatest laws of power. The more valuable you become, the less you need to demand attention. Your work, your character, and your consistency become your introduction. Never allow comfort to stop your growth. The moment you believe you know enough, someone else begins learning more. The moment you stop improving, your value begins to decline. Continue developing your mind, strengthening your discipline, expanding your skills, and refining your character. Every improvement becomes another investment in the future you are creating. The people who truly change their future are not those who spend years asking the world to recognize them. They are the ones who quietly become so capable, so dependable, and so valuable that recognition eventually becomes unavoidable. They understand that lasting power is earned through continuous growth, not temporary attention. And once you become a person whose value cannot easily be replaced, the final law of power is learning to make every decision today with the future you want to live tomorrow. After mastering yourself, protecting your reputation, guarding your attention, thinking strategically, and becoming a person of undeniable value, there is one final law of power that determines whether your future becomes ordinary or extraordinary. It is the law that most people ignore because its results are invisible in the beginning. This law teaches that every decision you make today is quietly creating the future you will eventually live. Your future is not built in one dramatic moment. It is built through thousands of small choices that seem unimportant when you make them but become impossible to escape years later. Most people imagine the future as something distant. They believe one day they will suddenly become disciplined, successful, respected, or financially free. They wait for the perfect opportunity, the perfect motivation, or the perfect circumstances. But powerful people understand a different truth. The future is not waiting somewhere ahead. It is being created right now through the habits you repeat, the standards you accept, the people you spend time with, And the decisions you make every single day, every morning presents a choice. You can move one step closer to the life you want, or one step further away from it. The decision may seem small: reading instead of wasting an hour on meaningless distractions, practicing a valuable skill instead of making another excuse, saving money instead of spending it to impress strangers, exercising instead of choosing comfort. None of these decisions changes your life overnight, but together they quietly shape the person you will become. Success is rarely the result of one brilliant decision. It is the reward for thousands of disciplined choices that nobody noticed while they were happening. This is why powerful people think differently about time. They do not ask, asterisk, what do I want today? They ask, asterisk, who do I want to become 5 or 10 years from now? That single question changes every decision. Temporary pleasure loses its attraction when it threatens long-term freedom. Immediate comfort becomes less valuable when it delays meaningful growth. They understand that every short-term decision either strengthens or weakens the future they are building. Another reason many people fail to change their future is because they underestimate the power of consistency. They look for dramatic transformations instead of daily improvement. They want extraordinary results while refusing ordinary discipline. But the greatest achievements are almost always the product of consistency. Reading 10 pages every day creates knowledge that transforms your thinking. Practicing one skill every day creates expertise that others admire. Saving a small amount regularly creates financial security. The future belongs to those who understand that consistency defeats intensity every time. Your relationships also shape your future more than you realize. Every person you allow close to you influences your standards, your mindset, and your habits. If you surround yourself with people who constantly complain, avoid responsibility, and settle for mediocrity, their thinking gradually becomes your own. But if you spend time with disciplined, ambitious, and principled individuals, your expectations naturally rise. Powerful people are careful about who receives access to their time because they understand that influence is often silent. You slowly become similar to the environment you repeatedly choose. Another law that changes your future is learning to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term freedom. Most people choose what feels good now without asking what it will cost later. They delay difficult conversations, postpone important work, ignore opportunities to improve themselves, and continue unhealthy habits because changing feels uncomfortable. But every comfort you choose today has a price. Sometimes that price is a weaker body. Sometimes it is a smaller career. Sometimes it is lost confidence or missed opportunities. Powerful people willingly accept temporary discomfort because they know it protects them from permanent regret. There will also be moments when life tests your commitment. Progress may become slow. Results may not appear when you expected them. Other people may move ahead before you. During these moments, many people abandon the very habits that were creating their future. They mistake delayed success for failure. But powerful individuals understand that meaningful growth often remains invisible before it becomes obvious. Just because you cannot see immediate progress does not mean your discipline is producing nothing. The strongest foundations are built underground before anyone notices what rises above the surface. The future also rewards those who remain adaptable. Power is not stubbornness. It is the willingness to learn, improve, and adjust without abandoning your principles. The world changes. Industries change. Opportunities change. If you refuse to grow, your future becomes smaller than your potential. But if you remain a lifelong student, continuously improving your knowledge, your skills, and your thinking, you become prepared for opportunities that other people never even recognize. When you look back at every law you have learned, you begin to see how they connect. Self-mastery gives you control over your emotions. A strong reputation earns trust before you speak. Protected attention allows you to focus on what truly matters. Strategic thinking prevents emotional mistakes. Personal value makes you impossible to replace. And this final law brings all of them together by reminding you that none of these qualities matter unless you apply them consistently over time. They are not separate lessons. They are the foundation of a future built through discipline, wisdom, and intentional living. One day, people may look at your success and believe you were lucky. They may assume everything happened quickly. They will see the results, but not the years of quiet decisions that created them. They will notice your confidence, but not the discipline that built it. They will admire your influence, but not the habits that shaped your character. That is the nature of real power. Its greatest work happens long before the world notices it. Never forget that every choice you make today is casting a vote for the person you will become tomorrow. If you consistently choose discipline over distraction, principles over pressure, growth over comfort, and long-term vision over temporary satisfaction, your future cannot remain ordinary. These laws of power will not change your life because you heard them. They will change your future only when you choose to live by them every single day.